Welcome back to the class, everyone. For the longest time, the model for unlocking a new character in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes was to either pay a ton of money up front or wait a really long time, or some type of combination of the two. And while that overall concept is not changing at all, there is a new method being introduced by CG, and we need to talk about it. And that new method is going to be called Special Marquee Events, and you can't really see that title because my face is covering it up. But basically what is happening that we're all seeing in game right now is the Marquee Events, when a new character is introduced, is adding in several new tiers that are going to allow you to unlock more shards of the new character, in this case Boss Nass, when you get that character to a higher star level. So basically what this is doing, it's allowing you to unlock more shards after you already buy shards. And it's an interesting concept. I'm not totally for or against it, but what I really am interested in is looking at the numbers and seeing really where this deal fits, if it's a good deal, if it's a bad deal. And I don't just want to arbitrarily look at this and be like, oh, free shards, it must be good, it must be the best thing ever, everyone must do it. So what we need to do before we actually decide whether this is good or bad is we need to look at a comparative value, because that's really how all value is going to be decided in game. And to do that, we have our handy dandy spreadsheet. So the first thing, again, looking at an overall crystal value comparison of what already exists in game before this whole special marquee event thing did. You had the fastest option of unlocking a character very day one is to use the gamble packs. And if you're unfamiliar with what the gamble packs look like, they are, let's see if I click on these shard now, it's probably not the easiest way to do it. If we go into the packs, this happens every single time we get a marquee character. You can immediately day one go in and start buying these guys, which have a chance to roll anywhere between 5 and 330 shards. You're not getting 330 shards. On average, once you do all the math, you're going to get about 8 shards per pull, meaning to get all the way up to a 7-star character, assuming you got your 50 shards or whatever it is from the marquee event, is ultimately going to cost you 44,000 crystals, or in other words, 160 crystals per shard. This is the most expensive way that you can get a character. It is also the fastest way you can get the character. After that, assuming you don't have the budget for that, because, you know, whatever, most of us don't, the fastest way to get the character is through the weekly and or daily shipments. So again, looking, what does that actually look like? After about a month, and this varies per character or whatever mood CG's in, they will put a character into these slots and allow you to buy them at a slightly cheaper value than the gamble packs we just looked at, but still overall really expensive. They will also appear in the weekly shipment store where you can buy higher amounts of them, and this will take you about 2 weeks once they start appearing there, just kind of with how RNG is going to fall and where you can get them, because the weekly store, as is very much implied, only happens once a week. So if you're going for that method, while it does take quite a bit longer, 45 days, it's going to cost you about half the price at 22,000 crystals overall. Now, let's say you don't have the budget for either of those two, and you're going to wait till the character actually hits a node, which is about 2 months after the initial release. Then you can refresh that node for more attempts, spend more energy, and get the character even faster. Again, not wanting to go into a ton of detail on this, but if we look at a character that we are currently farming, like let's say I'm currently going after Paz Vizsla, and I wanted to get him faster, I could go in and refresh his node specifically so that I could get more attempts, yielding on average 1.65 shards with how the drop rate is for all of these. And then after the 25, I could also do the refresh for 50. If we do it that way, doing both the 25 and the 50 crystal refresh every single day, it'll take about 116 days to get the character from release, and it'll only cost us about 4,000 crystals. This is very much what we'll call veteran free-to-play. I wouldn't advise that a lot of people do this, but those of you out there who only have like 5 characters left to farm, this is very much what you're going to find yourself doing a lot of time, because you have the income to do it, and you don't really need to farm, 10, 20 characters all at once, and ultimately you're going to end up paying 30 crystals per shard doing it that method. If you're doing the single refresh, aka only doing the 25 crystal refresh, this is how much it's going to cost you overall, and ultimately only about 15 shards or 15 crystals per shard, which again is pretty cheap. The least expensive way to do it is to wait until it's fully on the node, not refresh it a single time, take 230 days to farm it, but not really end up paying anything else except your own free energy, which you were going to probably get anyways. And then the last option, I guess we'll include this, is accelerated. After characters have existed in the game for a year, they become accelerated, where you get double the drops, so you're spending 0 crystals but cheaper, or maybe more expensive depending on how important the character was. So now, after that 5-minute orientation or opener, I don't know, intro, that's the word I'm looking for, we now have established all the different ways you can farm a new character and how they all kind of stack up against each other. And one thing really rings true: the longer it takes, the cheaper it gets, and that's just kind of how it works. Now, when we look at the overall comparison for Boss Nass Special Marquee event, and by the way, this is probably going to apply to every single one of these marquee events that's coming out. And even if they decide to continue this a later period, we should be able to use these charts or graphs, or I guess spreadsheets, the proper terminology there, to decide whether or not we want to do, or what the overall value is going to be. Now, to understand what is happening here with the special marquee value is we have to spend on the gamble packs in order to be able to have access to these extra shards, because as you can kind of see here, the special marquee event only runs for about 1 week total, and after that week it's not going to be there anymore. So the only method that we currently have to get shards other than the event itself is by going and getting those packs for 1,299 crystals that you guys are just kind of seeing right here. So going back to our spreadsheet, now that we've understood that, if we are going to spend, let's say we need to get 2 packs, which total ends up totaling about 2,300 crystals, or actually that's not quite right. It's going to be closer to 6. There we go. Once it totals 2,600 crystals, we're going to be paying about 46 crystals per shard. And the reason why that is because the gap between 3 and 4 stars to be able to unlock that tier is so low, and we're also already getting some shards from the web store, as well as the event itself gave 55 shards instead of the normal 50. So you only actually have to spend 2 gamble packs to be able to bridge the gap, to be able to get to this ultimate 3rd tier, where you're not only going to get 5 specific shards on that day, but you are going to get 5 shards every single day, including this day, and every day after it until the end of the event. Which means, long story short, because you got your character to 4 stars on day 1, you are going to get 40 extra bonus shards. So when we do the math on that, again with our spreadsheet here, not only are we going to be getting those 40 shards, but we're also going to be profiting on average 8 shards by spending those 2 gamble packs, which is how we get to this ultimate number of 56 shards and our ultimate shard value. And the reason why this is in yellow here is because if we compare this with our previous data that we looked at, we're getting 46 or we're getting 1 shard for 46 crystals. That's better, significantly better than the gamble packs, and quite a bit better than the shipments themselves, which aren't even going to be available until roughly a month from now. Now, it does lose pretty easily to both the single and double refreshes, as they're just way cheaper. But again, if this is an option you can do immediately to be able to get the 4-star character, then power to you to be able to go all the way after that. I should probably factor into this, though, that 4-star characters are just about as relevant as 3-star characters. Nowadays, you need to have your characters all the way up to 7 stars to be able to apply 6-dot mods to them, in addition relics and a bunch of other really helpful things for them to actually be good in the variety of game modes that we want them to be good in. So overall, it's nice to see that the single shard price does go down significantly, especially when comparing it to the gamble packs and the shipments overall, but it's not that game breaking, especially because when we look at the subsequent values, they just get worse and worse. And this is just kind of the natural order of things. When we go in and look at the special marquee event, it's not giving you a bonus 40 shards and then a bonus 80 shards and then a bonus 120 shards. You're getting 40 every single time, but what you have to pay to get to that next threshold does actually increase and is more expensive every single time. To be able to take Boss Nass from 3 stars to 4 stars, it's only 30 Boss Nass shards, so you don't need all that many gamble packs to be able to close the gap. Whereas from 4 to 5, 5 to 6, the number just keeps increasing, so you have to increase the amount you're putting in, and you're really getting the same return every single time, or I guess less if you're counting up as far as percentages go. So overall, it's not giving a huge amount of value, but it really does fit in perfectly overall with CG's hierarchy of spend now or wait, because as when we or when we pull up this kind of hidden figure down here, it matches up perfectly for how the rest of this works. It will take you longer than the gamble packs. It will take you 7 days to complete this because that's how long the event goes, but it will be significantly cheaper, about 18,000 crystals cheaper. Still expensive, but I guess better. And overall, you'll be yielding about 85 or 1 shard per 85 crystals that you spend into it, which is worse than the shipments overall that take 45 days, but not overall by that much. We're only losing out on about 4,000 crystals, and you get to use the character, the team, or whatever it is pretty much a whole month earlier, if not a little more so. So overall, that is the value of these packs. They're not really all that great, but we do have some conclusions that we want to talk about. The new system that they're doing right now, it's not broken. In fact, it's very comparable. It's following the exact same structure that we've always had. It's just kind of introducing a new method between gamble packs as well as the shipments. And this really is only going to help close the gap a little bit between the dolphins and the whales. You really have to be a spender for this to affect you. And that really all revolves around the fact that the double and single crystal refreshes, which are much more palpable when it comes to using your in-game crystals on something, because the price is so much lower, and you can do it fairly consistently once you have a really good income of crystals and just don't have that many characters to farm right now. So overall, it's just not really all that free-to-play friendly because you can't repeat it. It's not consistent without spending money. So that's kind of the very definition of free-to-play. And the final most important lesson is that Jar Jar is priceless and that we will be getting him at all costs. And it's kind of cool that this is working out directly in Calvin's favor, because I don't really care. I actually do care for Boss Nass, but we want Jar Jar. And at the end of the day, that's all it's about. And this helps us just get there one step at a time. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. And as always, stay awesome.